welcome back to my channel. Hope you're well. Happy Friday, happy Good Friday. It's the weekend. It's the bank holiday weekend, so you get 4 days off. 4 days to chill and do your thing. I hope you've had a good week anyway. My week's been stressful. Well, the week's been okay. The last weekend was stressful because my poor girl was poorly again, which wasn't great. Bless her heart. She's better now, thankfully. Our vets have been wonderful, and they've, really great. So big up to our vets. So other than that, what have I done? Nothing, just normal stuff. Been trying to do my video, and because I've still not got a webcam, I'm still using my phone. So yeah, it's been a bit awkward because my program, my webcam I've got, it is a rubbish one. It's just a cheap one. But it's been, I don't know, all the settings and stuff keep going wrong, and it's all just been like, oh. So yeah. Anyway, I'm waffling. Today's video, let's talk about that instead. Today's video is about Jack the Ripper. Now, I know you all know who Jack the Ripper is, because who doesn't know who Jack the Ripper is? And you know all the stories probably and stuff, but I'm hoping that today you might, I don't know, you might find out something you didn't know maybe. There's always hope, isn't there? There's always hope. So hopefully you'll enjoy it. So I'll just stop waffling, shall I? And shall we just get on with the damn video? Let's roll the video and I'll see you on the other side. Jack the Ripper was an unidentified serial killer in and around the Whitechapel district of London, England in 1888. He was also known as the Whitechapel Murderer and the Leather Apron. Attacks were of prostitutes who lived and worked in the slums of the East End London. He normally cut their throats before doing abdominal mutilations. On at least 3 of his victims he removed the internal organs, which had led the police to believe that he had surgical knowledge. Was he a doctor? Nobody really knows. In September and October 1888, letters were received by media outlets and Scotland Yard from people claiming that they were a murderer. In a letter known as the Dear Boss letter, written by an individual, the name Jack the Ripper originated. Although the letter was highly believed to have been a hoax and may have been written by journalists, probably to highlight the interest in the story and increase the newspaper's circulation. Another letter, known as From Hell letter, came with half a preserved human kidney, apparently taken from a victim. The public believed in the existence of a single serial killer named Jack the Ripper, mainly because of the extraordinary nature of the murders and, of course, the media coverage of the crimes themselves. In the mid-19th century, London's Met Police estimated that there were 62 brothels and 1,200 women were working as prostitutes in Whitechapel. The large numbers of attacks against women in the East End during this time adds uncertainty to how many victims were murdered by the same individual. 11 separate murders from April 1888 to February 1891 were included in the police investigation and known to the police as the Whitechapel murders. The first 5 Ripper victims were Mary Ann Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, and Mary Jane Kelly. Mary Ann Nichols' body was found at 3:40 a.m. on Friday the 31st of August 1888 in Bucks Row, Whitechapel. She had last been seen alive around 1 hour before her body was found by Mrs. Emily Holland, with whom she shared a bed and common lodging house in Spitalfields. Her throat had been severed by 2 deep cuts, one of which completely severed the tissue down to the vertebrae. Her vagina had been stabbed twice, and the lower part of her abdomen was partly ripped open by a jagged, deep wound, causing her bowels to protrude. Several other incisions inflicted to both sides of her abdomen had also been caused by the same knife, as each of these wounds had been inflicted in a downward thrusting manner. Only 1 week later, on Saturday the 8th of September, the body of Annie Chapman was discovered at approximately 6 a.m, near the steps to the doorway of the backyard of 29 Hanbury Street, Spitalfields. As was the case with the first victim, her throat had been severed by 2 deep cuts. Her abdomen had been cut entirely open, with a section of her flesh from her stomach being placed on her left shoulder, and another section of her skin and flesh, plus her small intestines, were being removed and placed above her right shoulder. Her autopsy revealed her uterus and sections of her bladder and vagina had been removed. She had last been seen standing outside 29 Hanbury Street at about 5:30 a.m, but she wasn't alone. She was in the company of a dark-haired man wearing a brown deerstalker hat and dark overcoat. According to the eyewitness, the man was heard asking, "Will you?" with Annie replying, "Yes." Elizabeth Stride and Catherine Eddowes were both killed in the early morning hours of Sunday 30th September 1888. Stride's body was discovered at approximately 1 a.m. in Duckfield Yard off Burner Street in Whitechapel. The cause of death was a single clear-cut incision, measuring 6 inches across her neck, which had severed her left artery and her trachea before terminating beneath her right jaw. The absence of any further mutilations of her body has led to uncertainty as to whether Stride's murder was committed by the Ripper, or whether he was interrupted during the attack. Several witnesses later informed police that they had seen Stride in the company of a man in or close to Burner Street on the evening of 29th September and in the early hours of 30th September. But each gave a different description. Some said that her companion was fair, others said he was dark. Some said that he was shabbily dressed, while others said he was well dressed. Eddowes' body was found in the corner of Meter Square in the City of London, 3/4 of an hour after the discovery of the body of Elizabeth Stride. Her throat was severed from ear to ear and her abdomen ripped along, opened by a long, deep, jagged wound, before her intestines had been replaced over her right shoulder, with a section of her intestine being completely detached and placed between her body and her left arm. The left kidney and a major part of Eddowes' uterus had been removed. Her face had been disfigured, with her nose severed, her cheek slashed and cuts measuring 1/4 of an inch and 1/2 an inch respectively, vertically incised through each of her eyelids. A triangular incision, the apex of which pointed towards Eddowes' eye, had also been carved upon each of her cheeks, and a section of her auricle and a lobe of her right ear was later recovered from her clothing. The police surgeon who conducted the post-mortem upon her body stated in his opinion that these mutilations would have taken at least 5 minutes to complete. The murders of Stride and Eddowes ultimately became known as the double event. The extensively mutilated and disemboweled body of Mary Jane Kelly was discovered lying on her bed in the single room where she lived at 13 Millers Court off of Dorset Street in Spitalfields at 10:45 a.m. on Friday the 9th of November 1888. Her face had been hacked beyond all recognition, with her throat severed down to the spine and the abdomen almost emptied of all its organs. Her uterus, kidneys and one breast had been placed beneath her head, and other viscera and from her body placed beside her foot. About the bed, and sections of her abdomen and thighs had been put upon a bedside table. The heart was missing from this crime scene. Multiple ashes found within the fireplace at 13 Millers Court suggested that Kelly's murderer had burned several combustible items to eliminate the single room as he mutilated her body. A recent fire had been severe enough to melt the solder between a kettle and its spout, which had fallen into the grate of the fireplace. Although these 5 women were the Ripper's first victims, some say he's only There were other victims, but not all were mutilated like these women. The vast majority of the City of London police files relating to the investigation into the Whitechapel murderers were destroyed in the Blitz. The surviving Metropolitan Police files allow a detailed view of investigative procedures in the Victorian era. A large team of policemen conducted house-to-house inquiries throughout Whitechapel. Forensic material was collected and examined. Suspects were identified, traced, and either examined more closely or eliminated from the inquiry. Modern police work follows the same pattern. More than 2,000 people were interviewed, upwards of 300 people were investigated, and 80 people were detained. Following the murders of Stride Meadows, the Commissioner of City Police, Sir James Fraser, offered a reward of £500 for the arrest of the Ripper. Butchers, slaughterers, surgeons and physicians were suspected because of their manner of mutilations. A surviving note from the Mayor, Henry Smith, acting Commissioner of the City Police, he indicates that the alibis of local butchers and slaughterers were investigated, with the result that they were eliminated for all inquiries. In the immediate aftermath of the murders, and later, Jack the Ripper became the children's bogeyman. Depictions of were often phantasmic and monstrous. In the 1920s and the 30s, he was depicted in film dressed in everyday clothes as a man with a hidden secret preying on his unsuspected victims. Atmosphere and evil were suggested through lighting effects and shadow play. By the 1960s, the Ripper had become a symbol of a predator and was often portrayed in a top hat dressed as a gentleman. Nobody knows who he was, whether he was a gentleman dressed in smart clothes and a top hat, or whether he is indeed a low-wage poor man. But to be honest, nobody knows if he's actually a man at all, do they? It could have been a woman, because for all anybody knows, it's not as if women aren't able to kill as well, now is it? The fictional world of the Ripper can fuse with multiple genres, ranging from Sherlock Holmes to Japanese erotic horror. Jack the Ripper features in hundreds of works of fiction and works which straddle the boundaries between fact and fiction, including the Ripper Letters and the Hoax Diary, the diary of the Jack the Ripper. The Ripper appears in novels, short stories, poems, comic books, games, songs, plays, operas, television programmes and films. More than 100 non-fiction works deal exclusively with Jack the Ripper murders, making this case one of the most written about in the true crime genre. The term Ripperology was coined by Colin Wilson in the 1970s to describe the study of the case by professionals and by amateurs alike. In 2015, the Jack the Ripper Museum opened in East London. It attracted criticism from both Tower Hamlets Mayor John Biggs and protesters. Similar protests occurred in 2021 when the second of two Jack the Chipper fish and chip shops opened in Greenwich, with some patrons threatening to boycott the premises. So make of it what you will, but there's no denying that Jack the Ripper is a serial killer that everyone has heard of, not only because of the crimes, but because of the fact that he or she was never caught. Well, there you go then. There you have it. I hope you enjoyed it. I think for me the whole Victorian era and everything was so different and so fascinating and quite out there, wasn't it, like compared to what it is now. I mean, now we've got everything. We've robots delivering our food, we have electric cars, electric scooters, electric bikes. We've got so much nowadays. We even have the internet, which is the powers of YouTube comes from. If we didn't have the internet, we would have no YouTube and you would have no me. Wouldn't that be nice? Yeah, so I find the whole era of the Victorian era fascinating. I love everything about the way they dressed, the things they ate, you know, just in general the way they lived, and everything. Does fascinate me. So, but then I could say that about so many different eras, because there's, you know, when you think about how things have changed over the years and how much, I suppose, life has evolved a bit, maybe, is that the right word? I think, you know, that's when you sort of sit back and go, wow, you know, for what we've got now, it's quite, you know, out there, isn't it? But yeah, so Jack the Ripper himself wasn't a nice person, a bit like Hitler, not very nice. I say him, could have been her, nobody knows, they were never caught, they were never found. So yeah, and the fact that they got away with it all them times is quite fascinating, isn't it? Like, you know, nowadays you wouldn't probably get away with stuff like that, because, you know, everybody films everything these days, don't they? Like, you know, you drive past someone who's had a road accident and people have got their mobile phones out and are filming it, which I think is absolutely vile. And it goes online. People do live streaming with everything now. Like, you can sneeze somewhere without somebody live streaming you, you know. So yeah, I think my chair. So if you hear this noise, I can't make it do it. But if you hear that noise when I'm doing videos, it's not me putting a coffee cup down like I keep getting asked, or, you know, whatever. It is my chair. Like, I just have to move and it bangs and cracks because it's bloody awful. Anyway, I digress. So yeah, Jack the Ripper was a horrible, horrible individual. The poor women that he murdered were prostitutes because that was the only way of them making some real money. Sometimes, I suppose, back then, same as now, I mean, if you haven't got a profession as such, you can't really have a career. So, you know. So yeah, I mean, I don't judge anyone on what they do as their job, you know, because at the end of the day, everybody's got to make ends meet, everybody's got to do something, and if that's what they choose to do, even if it's not something they want to do particularly, then that's the way it goes, isn't it, at the end of the day. So yeah, so obviously the things he did were horrendous in every way. That'd be, if you could hear that, that'd be a delivery. Yeah, so I don't know, I just find the whole thing was mind-blowing, the way he got away with it. But I also feel like surely he had to be a surgeon or something of some sort, purely based on the fact that he knew how to literally sort of dissect someone, if you like. Because you've got to have some sort of surgical skills or knowledge, surely, to just the way he did it. And which is why the police took in the butchers and, you know, people like that who know how to, I suppose, slice things up and whatever. And, you know, that he took out some of their internal organs, and it's grisly, and it's really grisly. So yeah, anyway, that was today's delightful video. I hope you enjoyed it. Happy Easter. No, seriously, I do hope you enjoyed it. And I do hope you'll come back again next week, and I haven't put you off. Next week, like I said last time, I'll probably alternate sort of like, you know, different videos sort of thing. So, you know, you might get something a bit more spooky next week. But yeah, so this week that was the video, that was it, and we are done. We are done here. I am done. It's Friday and I'm out of here. So if you're gonna eat chocolate Easter eggs and such like, don't have too many. Don't make yourself feel too sick. I don't have to worry about that because I don't like chocolate, never have, even as a kid. I know, I'm weird. I have been told this on a number of occasions. A woman doesn't like chocolate? Whoa, no, I don't. I just don't. Never have. So you know, it's too sweet, it's too sickly, it's too, I don't like the texture, I don't like the smell. Yeah, that's it really. So yeah, I won't be having any Easter eggs, which is fine by me. So if you do anyway, don't eat too much, don't make yourself feel sick. Have a nice time with your families and your friends, and I'll see you again back here, same time, same place next week. Take care of yourselves, keep smiling, and I'll see you again soon. Bye bye.